Hi, I'm Lexi from the Georgetown Project, and I'm here to present today the building blocks of literacy. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. So today we're going to cover all the things that kind of contribute to the skills that kids need when they're young to be ready to learn reading skills when it's time. So we're going to talk about the principles of emergent literacy. We're going to talk about what kind of typical development looks like. We're going to talk about the skills that kids need and how they develop, and some developmental milestones, when to kind of expect to see some of those skills. So if you have any questions after the session or at any point, feel free to email me. You can email me at Lexi, Lexy, at georgetownproject.org. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what is emergent literacy? So when we talk about emergent literacy, what we mean is that the knowledge, the skills, the abilities that kids develop during the preschool years that serve as the precursors to conventional reading and writing. So we're not talking about teaching kids to read and write, because that's really not developmentally appropriate for preschoolers. We're talking about what kids know about reading and writing, and the beginning of that kind of oral and written language proficiency that we know is so important. Okay, so we're going to talk first about the 4 basic principles of emergent literacy. So these are kind of overarching themes that we understand based on the science about learning to read. The first one is that literacy is a social process. So just like every other bit of learning that goes on with young kids, learning pre-literacy skills are just the same. It all is about relationships, right? So learning these early skills, they occur in the context of kids' interactions with adult caregivers, with parents, and it encompasses all the experiences that kids have with books and reading, leading up to when it's time to learn to read. So they can be good or bad experiences, right? So a child who climbs in a teacher's lap and they grabs at the book and the teacher just rolls with it and just says, oh, you really like that page, right? That child is going to walk away with a really positive reading association from that experience. But if they're have a caregiver that anytime they touch a book, in a rough way, as young toddlers might do, they're scolded, or they're told, no, don't touch that, or they're put down, or they're told to stop interrupting in a harsh way. All of those things can really contribute to a negative experience about with kids and books and reading. So that's why it's really important have these great experiences where kids are invited to participate, right? They want to touch the page. Of course, you can teach them manners and skills about, how to be patient and how to wait. But the more excited they are, the better their future love of reading will be. So we want to encourage that excitement, encourage them to want to listen to story time, make it a fun experience. Allow kids to use those kind of all their senses as they do, right? Babies that eat books, toddlers that are maybe rough with books. We of course teach those skills of how to be gentle, but we don't want to scold or be do anything to kind of turn them off of their interest. So experts say that to support reading readiness, adults need to supply children with 1,000 reading related experiences before their first day of kindergarten. So for all of you that are childcare providers and preschool teachers and all of that, I mean, this is all about you, right? This is you, this is parents. And so working together to give kids those experiences they need, the positive experiences. And of course, what reading has to start with understanding language. So kids develop language through relationships, right? Through that serve and return, where a baby coos and an adult responds, and that's just the beginning of the language. And so that kind of interaction is so important so that they can develop the language skills that they need in order to eventually be ready to read. So we'll talk a little bit more about how that develops in a minute. But um, again, it doesn't mean that we're teaching toddlers and preschoolers how to read, right? And that's just not developmentally appropriate. So we're talking about how to lay the important foundation. And for kids to learn, for young kids to learn, they really need people, caregivers that care about them, that give them good experiences, that open their eyes to what's out there. Okay, so our next basic principle of emergent literacy is that it begins at birth. And that doesn't really make sense, right, when you think about it, because can a baby read? I mean, of course not. So, but it involves all those interactions, those important developmental interactions that they get with their caregivers that support them. And then, of course, you know, as they develop the physical development, like the hearing and the vision and all of that, that's all part of it. That's how that's laying the foundation for literacy, right? You have to have those things first. So I'm going to share a video that's about 10 minutes long, and to stop sharing the screen and share a different screen. So sorry about this. This is from, my desk is a mess here. Right here, it's the Celebrating Language and Literacy curriculum. Sorry, it's backwards. But anyway, this is what I'm going to share, about a 10-minute clip about nurturing relationships to develop language and literacy. So.
Thank you, Jess. Is he gonna go eat it? It's a little hungry.
Hi. Want to do it again? You want to touch it? Use one finger.
A baby, infant, toddler from 0 to 3 really does read. They read the world through the relationships and the bonds that they make. And then as they get older, they start recognizing different symbols and even hand gestures from their parents or caregivers and siblings.
It's really the foundation for everything they learn later in life. Of course, we have all the brain development that tells us in a very concrete way why we need to have interesting activities for babies to be part of. But I think on a more personal level, we really realize that babies learn through interaction, and that we need to provide that in order for their development to be optimal, so that when they are 5 and 75, those good foundations are there for them.
Every day you have an opportunity in everything that you're doing to enhance a child's life in language and literacy.
Language and literacy-rich environment for infants and toddlers really is about the people that are part of that environment. Infants are just beginning to hear our language and distinguish the different sounds of our language. And you know, we know that relationships and turn-taking and imitating, those are all the really important first steps of language acquisition. So that's about people. That's about the caregivers. If it's a classroom situation, that's about parents when it's at home. That there's needs to be that bond.
Relationship is the foundation for literacy and language in the early years.
Language and literacy is everything to babies. It's how they gain their cognitive development. It is how they begin the relationship with their parents and with people, their social and emotional development. Language and literacy is everything. It starts from the very beginning, even in the womb.
And we know that even babies that are still inside the uterus can hear at a really early age of fetal development. So Reading and sharing books with your baby prenatally is an excellent way to start. Language is important. Hearing the words are important. And it doesn't matter whether it's Cat in the Hat or it's their homework or the Sunday newspaper, that the words and then the language and the tone in which those words are said, that's where the importance is. And if they continue that will create an interest in their babies to learn those words and to say those words and to want to read those words also.
The relationship that the child has with the primary adult that's taking care of them is the most important thing. The child learns everything in the context of that relationship.
Oh, you like that.
Nice. What else do you want to tell us, huh? Oh, okay.
Learning starts early. Talk, sing, and read to your baby. Imitate your baby's coos, babbles, and gestures.
We have lots of snaps today. Dad, I know.
Got it. Right there. Yes.
Even though it's not a 2-year-old and they're not responding back to you, but babies need that right away. They need that language and to see your mouth. When she was first born, she would more want to look at their faces than to look at books or toys. So it really established a relationship with them. They do a lot of face-to-face interaction, which is the best thing to do at such a young age, seeing that mouth moving, hearing that language, and also the bond it builds with the family.
And it may seem kind of weird when you first start doing it. You're like, he can't understand this. He's only 4 weeks old. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel with it, and the more words your baby will learn.
I've been talking to him since he was born, and it's proven it works. To talk to him and cuddle him and hug him and read to him. I read to him my books that I read. I mean, when he was little, he'd lay next to me sleeping, and I'd just read out loud. You read and you talk, and they both teach your child. My son loves it. He gets more involved and he talks more and he gets excited when you listen. I really started getting into it. I really enjoyed it.
Taking the time to observe, to listen, really listen, and to wait for the child to initiate is another really important part for children. What you need is to use language, and that happens through turn-taking in conversation every day. When you're at the store, you can use the opportunity of being at the store to show them milk, to show them oranges, to talk about round, to talk about soft, to talk about hard. You are the vehicle by which a child will learn to communicate. And in learning how to communicate, that's the foundation for them to want to learn to read and write. You can use anything as long as you are being very intentional and paying attention to where your child's cue is. You can use anything to enhance language. You don't have to have a specific thing.
That's the awesome thing, is that it's in what we do daily. It's not additional stuff. You think of tools, the McDonald's sign, that's a tool. The stop sign, I mean, they're around us every day. So it's nothing additional you have to go buy or do. It's just, there it is. How can we use those everyday things as part of the literacy practice? It's just, looking at how we do it. Using those tools and making it simple.
Whether they're taking the bus, reading the bus book, traveling in the car when they're at school, is to recognize that any of those things are opportunities for teaching their child language and literacy. Explain that they're getting on the bus, they're going to school. When they get to school, this is what's going to happen, so that their child becomes familiar with those routines and their day.
It could be when you're going on a walk, or when you're outside, looking at the bugs on the ground, or you're rolling balls back and forth. You can be storytelling, you can be communicating.
It is the foundation for a child's beginning school. and also just learning about the world in general. It's not just sharing stories or learning the alphabet or drilling with ABCs, but it's talking about the whole environment that they're growing up in. And that just sets the foundation for the rest of their life.
You're the key. You're the most important beginning step of understanding that communication, language, and literacy are very important to you by the way you model it.
I didn't realize how much they pick up everything you say, how you talk to them, the tone of voice you use, how you act to other people. Because you see kids that act like, if they see stuff all the time negative, they act like that. And so it's made me real conscious of what I'm doing, what I'm saying to him, how I'm saying it to him, how I'm talking to other people, or how I'm talking about other people when he's around. So it's made me really think about what I'm doing.
Her little ears. I think Molly likes it when you hold her and look, she's got a white stripe right here. You're talking. What's she saying?
Holly, Molly. What Holly?
Yeah,
Oh,
is that what she's saying? Look at her teeth. Are you kissing her? Look, she kissed you. Did Holly kiss you, John?
Yes.
Here. Okay. Lay down. Can I wear a hat too?
I'm going to put my gloves on. You going to open the diaper for me? Open.
It's really around daily routines, daily experiences. It's building on everyday experiences and being intentional about that. It's to take advantage of, with infants and toddlers, meal times, bath time, diaper changing time, and to really think about and develop the relationship during that time.
Other one.
Push. Get it. Would you like to wear those? You want to wear a hat too? There you go. You did it.
I'll pull out my sports page, and it doesn't matter whether it's a sports page or the front page or whatever the case may be, but I'm modeling to my son that I'm reading, and so there'll be times where he'll go up to the table and get that newspaper himself and sit down and open it up too and pretend that he's reading as well, and then he'll jargon some words and stuff like that, and so I'm like, he's modeling what he's seeing, and that's very important, and it's a beautiful sight too.
Okay, so sorry, let me bring myself back here. Hello. I'm gonna also change the setting. I switched it so hopefully you can now read because when I hold up books and things. So okay, so that was just kind of a little overview about relationships and how important it is, and also I think it does a good job of kind of bringing home the idea that that literacy is all about language, and language development and relationship development and all of that starts really at birth. So we're really working on these skills. Even if you teach in an infant classroom, you are really helping pave the way for these early literacy skills. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so here we are. Literacy begins at birth. So just a quick overview of, and we're going to talk more about in depth about kind of the stages in just a minute, but between the 4th and 8th month of life, a child develops a native language map. And what that means is basically a neuron is assigned to every sound in the native language, in the language that those around them are speaking. So that's why this talking and reading to infants is so important, because they're making this language map when they're, before they can talk at all themselves, when they're just, between 4 and 8 months old. So that's why, and we talk to them, that's important, but also reading to them, because there's so many words that you would come across in books that you may not have in normal conversation, right? You probably don't bring up zebras or, giraffes or, I don't know, just lots and lots of different things that you might find in a children's book that you wouldn't necessarily find in conversation. So that's why even when they're, sometimes it feels a little bit silly to read to an infant before they're really able to get it, but they're making those connections and listening to those sounds, and that's just super important. Okay, so our next basic principle, I can get my slides to move forward, okay, is that all aspects of literacy, so that's listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking, develop interdependently, right? They're all connected, right? Listening and speaking are obviously connected. Thinking is connected to those things. Reading comes from understanding words. All of these things they develop together. So you won't see like, oh, I've got this skill and then I move on to this skill. It's kind of like they all feed into each other. So I have a chart with stages of development and then the skills associated with it. So I'm not going to go too deeply into this, but just kind of to understand the big picture is this is the rough developmental order. And so again, it's not like they're going to finish learning listening and then move on to language and then move on to comprehend. It's not nearly as tidy as all that. So it all kind of feeds into each other. But really for the first couple years, 0 to 2, they're really working on those first 2 stages. So getting ready, which means listening, right? They're learning to listen. We said that they're making those connections, those neuron connections with different sounds in their native language, right? So they're learning that. They're learning to understand what sounds mean, right? These first 2 years are really about developing language for young kids. So first it's listening, falling in love with sounds, which means understanding and being excited about that sounds make up words and what that means, right? They're developing auditory memory so that they can remember what words mean, right? You start to see that they learn that plane, when you say the word plane, they'll start to look at, right? They're starting to remember that. And auditory perception. So it's just all about hearing. And that really in utero, right? They tell you that you can read to your baby when you're pregnant or your spouse is pregnant. And that's because their hearing is actually wired at while they're still in utero. And it matures when they're about 3 months old. So, and then they're making those connections. So, again, responding to those cues, teaching them about how to have a conversation, that's so important. And then that's also important, of course, for the developing oral language. So their stages are extending and enriching vocabulary, right? They go from mama and dada to, knowing words for all kinds of stuff. Matching words to thoughts or actions. So you'll see them like labeling everything, right? So that's language development and more auditory perception. So that's really kind of 0 to 2. Then from 2 to 6, you're kind of doing the rest of the chart. Now, they, of course, as they get older, right, development progresses, and they're doing kind of, right, their vocabulary is even deeper, right? They're still developing language, and they're learning more and more words. So what happens first, or even before, even in the first 2 years, is that their vision matures, but also other things that are needed to read. So vision's important, right? So not just being able to see, but being able to focus, being able to track the page, words on a page, right? That's something that an infant can't do, right? Their eyes have to get stronger and mature more. Small muscle coordination is achieved. You start to see critical thinking skills emerge. which are necessary because they have to be able to, well, I mean, not only understand the sequence of the story, but understanding that this symbol means this sound, making those connections is a developed level of thinking. Their attention span increases, right? The difference between a 6-month-old's attention span and a 3-year-old's attention span is significant, right? Not that a 3-year-old is going to sit there for days, but then if you compare that to a 6-year-old's attention span, there's a big difference there too. So thinking about, that progresses. And again, I should have said before, everybody is different. So I don't want to get too caught up in saying when these things happen, because reading development happens pretty much in this general order, but it can happen at different kids are ready at different ages. Okay, so attention span increases, vocabulary increases and becomes more sophisticated. So not only more words, but more more descriptive words and words that are more complicated, and so that they can get more complicated ideas out. So children during this period really do well if they can have lots of opportunities to play with language. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit, but like rhyming and singing and that sort of thing. So and then of course talking and listening, developing their attention span, and as fun as we can make it, the better it is, right? Finger plays and rhyming games and all that, just to make them really enjoy it. So just going through those boxes. So starting from comprehending is the first of the kind of 2 to 6-year-old. So enacting, dramatizing, recreating stories. So you'll see that, either something that they read, a book you read to them, then they'll be going and playing it later, or maybe their favorite movie. When they act out their favorite movie, that's a form of storytelling, right? Which is a literacy skill. Answering multi-level questions. So your 2-year-olds are not probably going to be able to do that, but kind of developing for that. So that's all about the language development, the conceptual development, critical thinking, understanding the functions of print. So what are those squiggles on the page? Understanding that they mean something, understanding spatial orientation. So being able to notice sequences and things like that. Recognizing part and whole relationships. I mean, that's part of learning to read is being able to take a word apart. So understanding that these parts together make a whole. That's like thinking the sun. So that's like an important concept that they have to get, that then they can kind of extend to reading later. And then putting thoughts on paper. So understanding that you have ideas and thoughts and you can write them down, right? So that seems obvious to us, but that's something they have to learn. And so that's all about visual perception and memory, motor coordination, writing, very much motor coordination, visual motor coordination, same thing, conceptual development. And then the last one is actually acquiring reading skills. And so that's definitely a later skill and even later for some kids, right? Being able to read predictable text. So they're using some context clues and also they recognize some sight words, and they're developing the phonological awareness, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's understanding kind of the sounds of language. And that's about auditory memory and perception, and visual memory and perception, visual motor coordination, language development, conceptual thinking, critical thinking. So those reading skills, you can see, put together a lot of these other skills. And of course, like language development isn't on there, but oh no, it is on there. Yeah, so it puts together maybe all of them that have kind of led up to this, because it pulls from all those skills that they've developed to be able to take that final step to be able to learn to read. Okay. And our next basic principle of emergent literacy is that it develops along a continuum. So like I said before, kids develop literacy on their own pace. So, some kids might be here and some kids might be here, and that's totally fine. I have 3 kids of my own, and my daughter was reading chapter books at 4, And my youngest one, my son, was probably 8 before he was really fluently reading. And that's okay. They're all fine, right? It's a developmental, it's just a developmental skill, right? Kind of like potty training, right? Some kids are going to do it early, some kids are going to do it later, and that's okay. Sometimes you'll see times where they're like making a lot of progress and then they slow way down. And sometimes that's because they're internalizing what they've learned. And, you see kids do that, right? They don't just progress on a linear path. They sometimes it starts and stops. So that's okay. But normal ranges of learning to read can vary by as much as 3 years. So from your early readers to your late readers. And the best practice that reading experts say is providing rich experiences for their brains to develop, and then letting kids develop at their own timetable. So not putting a lot of pressure on them. Sometimes I hear programs who are like, we're going to have every kid reading by the time they're finished with, pre-K or kindergarten or whatever. And it's not, that's not how kids go. That's not how kids operate, right? We can do the best we can to set them up, and then we have to just kind of let their brains develop as they're going to develop. And again, it doesn't have anything to do with them being smarter or less smart. It's just whether or not their brains are ready for this. Okay, so those are our 4 basic principles of emergent literacy. Now we're going to talk about kind of the components, going a little deeper into what skills they need in order to be ready to learn to read when it's time. So the first one we've talked about quite a bit, so I'm not going to go too far. I'm not going to talk about too much more, but is oral language skills. So vocabulary, understanding how to use language, the conventions of spoken language, and the bigger the kids' vocabulary is, and the better their understanding of languages, the better they'll do in reading later in life, right? That makes sense because it's all about words. And we can build oral language skills by kind of what the video said, right? Talking and listening to kids. We want to be using descriptive words and varied vocabulary. And I think that this is one of the reasons why it's so important to do like hands-on learning. You're not going to learn about bumpy and smooth and, other kinds of, sensory words by doing worksheets. They're not, they have to have those experiences in order to have the opportunity to hear more words, right? It's really part of it. And then, of course, making it fun, using songs, finger plays, poems, games that teach those phonemic awareness skills like rhyme and alliteration, like Lucky Lizard or, Giant Giraffe. So, that kind of thing. And you'll notice that so many kids' books, I'm sure you already have, so many of their books and their songs are all about rhyming. And that's because that's such an important early reading skill. So repeating words is really important for strengthening those pathways. The more repetition they get, the stronger the pathway is. So in their brains. So, and then of course, getting down on eye level and having conversations where they can match your face and your mouth movement to your words. That's really important as they develop. And then using complex sentences, not talking baby talk to them, talking to them with normal language, because that's how they learn it. So, and then of course limit like screens and different things, because it takes away both the relationship piece and then they don't learn language from a screen nearly as well as they do from another person. So you might, I know sometimes parents feel like, oh, this, I don't know, back in the old days, it was Baby Einstein, whatever the apps are now, they think this is helping make my child smarter, but what actually makes them smarter is talking to them and reading to them, and that interaction is so important. So another component of early literacy is print awareness. So understanding that print tells the story, right? That it carries the meaning of the story. The words mean something. That the printed word corresponds with spoken word, right? And making that connection that, oh, shoot, if you put your finger under while you're reading, that helps them kind of make that connection. Understanding how to read a book, right? And the way the words go. So one of the things to do to build print awareness is to teach kids about books, teach them how to handle books properly. So that means that we teach them etiquette about books, right? We don't throw them, we don't tear them, we don't whatever, but we also are doing it in a gentle way where we understand that kids are, young kids are going to do that. Sometimes or be too rough sometimes, but you don't want to just take away all their books and put them up high and then only handle them with, supervised or whatever. You want to give them a chance to really take ownership of the books and interact with them. So, but we'll be teaching them how to handle it how to handle them properly. How to recognize the features of the book, which just means understanding the cover. This is the cover, that these are the pages, that we turn the pages, right? It seems obvious to us, but they don't know. Teaching kids what direction it goes, right? Sometimes you'll see kids reading the book upside down. Teaching them that the printed letters go left to right and top to bottom. So if you, like I said before, if you're reading and you're pointing, that helps them understand that. And then of course, when you're reading to them, they're sitting on your lap, you're pointing at this page and you're talking about that, and then you're talking about this, and then you're turning the page. It's just making those, it helps them make those connections that that's how a book works. Okay, so these are really great skills to teach young kids like 0 to 3. Now, you don't have to have a lesson. Like everybody, here's my book, and this is how you write. They learn by watching and they learn by doing. So, so having that kind of experience with them. Okay. And we also build print awareness by creating a literacy rich environment. So that means we have lots of books and other print materials for kids to see. So lots of things with writing. We might have labeled, items in the room. You might have, a reading nook kind of area for them to see. You see, this classroom has like the library there, and then also on the shelves they have some books. So you might have, like in the science center, you also have some books, and in the dramatic play area, you might have writing materials, and then your art area, you have, so you have lots of different opportunities for them to engage it. And then on the walls, you have writing, or you might have cubbies labeled, or you might have furniture labeled, however your classroom is set up, just for them to be able to see as much print as possible, right? To feel comfortable with that and all that. And then visit the library when you have the opportunity. So I know a lot of the libraries have been closed and you may or may not have access, but just getting them used to, this is a place of books and this is what we do and this is how we check out books, or just you visiting the library and bringing in new books into your classroom. So they always will notice, right? They'll be like, I haven't seen that one before. They'll make a beeline to the shelf. All right. Okay. So the next component that we're going to talk about is alphabetic principle, which sounds fancy, but all it means is that they understand that these are letters and each letter has a corresponding sound. And this is not something that we expect young children to get, right? We start working on it, and then some kids will get it really quickly, and some kids will need to get a little bit older and develop a little bit more before they're ready. But being able to know the alphabet when they start kindergarten is found to be one of the better predictors of eventual reading achievement. So having that foundation is good. That doesn't mean our 3-year-olds need to have mastered it, right? We're just saying, around 5 or so, their kids are in a little better shape if they already know if they already recognize the alphabet and know the letter sounds. And so that's part of it is, right, not just this is in, but this is in and it makes the n sound, because that's the part you really need, right? You don't even really need the letter name. It's all about the sound it makes. And of course, in the English language, our letters, some of our letters make different sounds, right? Like C makes K and sometimes. And so that can get trickier, but if they have some foundation of it, then that will help them be set up a little bit better. So how do we do that with preschoolers? Well, I mean, there's the alphabet song, right? Or different various songs that you can sing. You can play games with the alphabet. I think sensory activities are really good ways to. So it looks like this one, they're floating in water, but then you can see that this is just something I got off the internet, but she has that, I think it's cookie sheet or something with the letters written on there. So it's matching and sensory. So that kind of activity is really fun. Alphabet books and alphabet puzzles are good ways to get that practice in. Sometimes those, generally I like toys where the kids have to do the work, but sometimes the toys that will say the letter sounds can be good. But we want them to learn to say the alphabet, recognize and name the letters, understand the sounds that they make, distinguish between capital and lowercase. Sometimes we'll find ourselves only doing uppercase letters, capital letters. But in a book, you don't see nearly as many of those, right? It's mostly lowercase letters, and then the beginning of sentence is a capital letter. So we want to make sure that we're teaching both, right? Not just the capital letters. And then recognizing beginning letters of familiar words. Now that's a more advanced skill, but just kind of, understanding maybe your name is Lily and it starts with L, and then understanding that llama, has the same sound. So they might not know it's L, but kind of being able to hear that. That's part of kind of these alphabet skills. And let's see, I have a couple more pictures of some more sensory activities for alphabet. So those are, I believe, sandpaper letters, something puffy. Making letters out of printing in Play-Doh. And so that's all. That's like recognizing letters and writing. So that's a combination. And then there's a sensory bin with all things that start with the letter A. So that's another idea. Different kinds of sensory ways to go: puff paint, sandpaper, shaving cream, salts, Play-Doh, chalk. Water and paintbrushes on the sidewalk outside. Just anything to get gross motor and sensory experiences and all that. So those are, for recognizing letters and also those early writing skills. Really important. Speaking of, that's our next component of early literacy. So talking about writing development and how that works. Now, for little kids, that begins with scribbling, right? So they just start scribbling, and then they start to be able to make kind of circles and different shapes, and they might make things that look like letters, and they might tell you what it says, right? Those are all the important stages of early literacy. And then eventually they might write something with their invented spelling, which is my favorite. I love that when nobody can read it except the person who knows the child really well. Because you can see that's such an important sign that they're making those connections, that letters and sounds are connected. So you can see if they don't hear a sound, like if they mispronounce a word, their spelling will be funny. Or sometimes I see it, I'm like, yeah, the word should be spelled that way. But that's just an important component. So we don't want to get caught up on, oh, this is the way you really should spell that word. It's such a great, important step for them to be able to do that invented spelling that we should celebrate it, right? We should be proud of them. They take the initiative to write on their own. Okay, so the way that we build these skills is easy. We just leave it out, right? We don't need to drill kids. We just need to provide them lots of opportunities. And if you have a kid that fine motor is tricky for them, and so maybe they don't want to write, find other ways for them to practice fine motor skills. So, I mean, maybe they want to pick up cotton balls with, what do they call, tweezers, or, maybe they want to trace something with their finger, or, there are so many different ways to practice these fine motor skills that can contribute to writing skills. So, making sure that they have lots of, paper and pencils and crayons and writing materials accessible. Now, if they're young toddlers, obviously they probably won't be accessible unless you're supervising them. But once they're a little bit older, they can be trusted to understand that most of the time that writing is for paper. Have that available to them, and then encourage them to scribble and draw and practice writing the letters. What did you write here? What'd you tell me about this? Right. Help kids to learn to write their names. That's easier for some kids than others, depending on their skill level and of course their name. But working on progress toward this. But we don't want to get too obsessed with this, right? We want to be age appropriate. Remember what's appropriate to, it's okay if our 2-year-old Alexandra is not going to write her name, right? We want to work toward that. And then encourage kids to incorporate writing into their dramatic play. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second, but transcribe for kids. I didn't mark this on the slide, but where they draw something and you say, what is this? And then they tell you and you write it down. So that helps them not only have that print awareness connection, but also helps them. I mean, they're essentially writing. They're doing the mental part of writing, just not the physical part. So that way they can practice that complicated skill of verbalizing what they're thinking. And then also, of course, gives them a lot of confidence and pride if they have a book that they've written, or if they have a story that they've written, or whatever. So just helping them make that connection between written and oral language. Okay, so going back to the having writing materials in the dramatic play center. So this is something we might not always remember. So I think in the first one, it's maybe a doctor's office setup. I'm not sure. And the second one looks like an office. I mean, you can have paper for grocery lists, or a zookeeper maybe needs to keep a little ledger of his animals, or anything that your library section maybe has where you write down, where you check out the books, right? And of course we're not really writing, they can write down whatever they want, but so that they incorporate it in their play, because we know that they learn the best through play. So getting those experiences that way is really important. Okay, so I'm going to start. I've got one more of those little videos. This one's about 6 minutes long, and it's called Exploring Writing, and it's going to show you kind of examples of literacy-rich classrooms and how to handle it with younger kids. And here, now that I'm got faced the right way, you can see celebrating language and literacy. So this is just one more clip from that video. Okay.
Still literacy activities. Really, it's the symbols and the interaction between the children and between the caregivers that's really learning how to read.
A red bird, pictures in here, and a yellow duck, and a teacher, and a goldfish.
The families and the parents that come into the classroom and with the children. Whose mom is that?
Williams.
No, this mom. Whose mom is this?
Williams.
Is that William's mom? Who is this?
That's Williams and that's
Can you match them, Hannah?
Apple.
Is that here? Let's find. Well, where's Abby's mom?
Abby's mom.
And then the older children are matching the parents to their friends. So it's kind of a multifaceted game.
Oh, Jessie, there's your ice cream. Did you say thank you? Thank you. Isn't that nice of her to do that? And do you need some milk or tea? Would you like some tea in this?
Goodbye. Your shoe.
Good job.
Can I have an apple?
Sure. Is it crunchy?
Yum.
You
want apple?
Oh, is she awake? I think she's
Awake.
Oh, she's awake. Yeah, she's awake. Does she want to see the mouse? Yeah.
There's a G. A G for Griffin. Here's the O it for Olivia. There is an I in your name too. That's right. Oh, it's for Olivia. I is in there too. Yeah. That is for you. Yeah. That one's an L. That's an Olivia too. That's an I. That's an Olivia. That's an O. For you. Yeah.
What are you making, Abby? Make it. Smush it. Make it flat.
Look what she's doing.
It's cold. It's cold.
Touch it, now, touch it.
Is it hot? Cold. Taste it. Get a piece of
Do you want me to trace your foot, Connor?
No, I want
Okay, you do it. I know, and she wrote an H for her name.
No, for yours.
For my, I have an H in my name. You're right. S-H. Today we cut out humongous dinosaur feet to do some comparison between big and little, and so we're tracing our feet. Trace your foot. Okay, put it down on top of my foot. You want to trace your foot? Okay. Your foot is little compared to this big dinosaur foot.
Yeah.
We changed forms. We were going to throw them away. Oh, and I said, don't throw them away. Kids love writing on my forms. Right.
Hey, Mama.
Thank you, baby.
Good cars.
The McDonald's Golden Arches. As much as we like it or don't like it, that is a tool of literacy because most young children can recognize that M for McDonald's, or they recognize the S for Safeway or the stop sign or any of those kinds of things.
When you walk into our room, there are cubbies along the wall, inset in the wall, and each cubby has a pretty good sized photograph of the child whose cubby that is, along with their name. And above the cubbies there is a parent bulletin board, and right now that changes, but right now we have 3 new children in our program, and so what is up there are it says welcome new families, and it has photographs of the new families and their children. At child's eye level, the back of a shelf that's covered in photographs, it has a variety of the children in the program involved in different common daily routines and activities, from snack time to washing their hands to nap to being out on a walk. So we have that representation of kind of the flow of their day there. And we also have the photographs of our families in frames. They ask for them and we bring them down for them to look at. One of the other things we do with families is we have a template book called A Book About Me that we send home with the new families, and they actually build a book with family photographs that then stays in the classroom, again, as something that can be comforting to the children, reinforces the importance of the family, and those are always accessible to the children.
Okay. So, so that one just kind of goes through different ways that you can share early literacy skills in the classroom, like symbols, which would just be, you know, pictures or, you know, anything like that. Like you talked about the McDonald's arches, right? So whatever it is can become a symbol. If you have your room labeled with pictures, that's a symbol. Sorry. Okay, here we are. All right, so anyway, okay, so that was kind of the idea. I just wanted to give, I love to see all those classrooms in progress and see what they're working on. So this kind of for younger kids. For older kids, then we're going to talk about some of these components of kind of the more complicated components, like phonemic awareness. So that's our next one here. So phonemic awareness, what that means is being able to hear and identify the sounds in words. So understanding that speech is composed of units. So of words, of syllables, of sounds. So it's not phonics. It seems like it's phonics, but it's not, because it's not recognizing a letter on the page and understanding the sound. That's not what phonemic awareness is. It's different. That's a different skill. Phonemic awareness is all about hearing, all auditory. So, and you need that. You need to be able to have that for phonics to make sense. They have to be able to recognize that dog starts with duh sound. So as they become more familiar with the letter names, then they develop with the letter sounds and shapes and names and all that. They develop the ability to take words that they hear and break them apart by sound, which is called segmentation. So they would recognize that dog is made up of d, a, g, right? So they probably aren't going to do that right off the bat. They might recognize the d as beginning. And the next stage is recognizing the last sound, the g, right? So so that's segmentation. And then the other part of this is being able to put them together. So blending. So it's kind of the opposite. So the d, a, g is dog. So so those are both kind of elements of that phonemic awareness. So these skills can be built through activities. They should be built through activities, right? Fun things. That's how we teach kids, little kids. Like you can identify and categorize sounds, like play games, like what's the, you know, find an object that starts with the same first sound as cat, and you know, find the object, that kind of thing. And it's always better. I mean, I'm sure you can find a million worksheets like that, but if you can, you know, have a pile of things that they, you know, go through and pick through, that's involves more of their brain and usually helps them make connections better. And then, you know, what word am I saying? At. Let's see if they can yell out cat. You can play rhyming games, you know, lots of different things. So there are, let's stop sharing for a second. Here I am again. I'm going to send out a handout that has a list of books and kind of different songs and rhymes that you can use in order to teach these phonemic awareness skills. But you'll find that so many books, because what we need is rhyming books. So Llama Llama Red Pajama, this is a great one for teaching phonemic awareness. Llama Llama Red Pajama reads a story with his mama, right? All about rhyming. Mama kisses baby's hair, Mama Llama goes downstairs. So I think like all those Dr. Seuss books. Here's another Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. And this one's going to teach the alphabet first, right? So that's another one of those skills that we need. Also does it the fun way. A told B and B told C, I'll meet you at the top of the coconut tree. We said D to E, F, G, I'll beat you to the top of the coconut tree. Chicka chicka boom boom, will there be enough room? Here comes H up the coconut tree. So you hear the rhyming and it's got the letters. So, and it's got uppercase and lowercase. So this one has got all kinds of different things. So this one, and then I have, I just picked up, all I did was look in my office and grab some books that I had. But so there's a lot more out there, but these were the ones that I had handy. This is a more kind of a book that you would read to a little bit older kids, right? This is more of a pre-K level book. I mean, I guess it doesn't necessarily need to be, but you know, so I just wanted to kind of show the different kinds of levels of books. This is Zin Zin, a violin. And it says things like, next a trumpet comes along and sings and stings its swinging song. It joins trombone, no more alone. And 1 and 2, oh, they're a duo. So anyway, there's just a never-ending supply of these. So I have on your handout here that I'll send you out. Different ones. I've got Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, Is Your Mama a Llama, Cat in the Hat, Sheep in a Jeep, There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. So I'm sure that you have just piles in your classrooms of books that would qualify as you know, rhyming or you know, playing with language in that way. Lots of those Dr. Seuss books are really good because they'll have rhyming, and they'll also have a lot of repetitive language and you know, different ways that they play with words. Then there's like songs and rhymes, like you know, that one that's, I like to eat apples and bananas, and then you say, I like to eat apples and bananas, and then you do all the vowel sounds. So that's you know, playing with language like that is you know, a really fun, easy way for them to kind of get practice with that. Miss Mary Mac, that's Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black. So that's one. You can play a game to the tune of If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands. Let's see. If you think you know this word, shout it out. If you think you know this word, shout it out. If you think you know this word, then tell me what you've heard. If you think you know this word, and shout it out. And then you would say, and then see if they can say cat. And then different kinds of, I'm not going to go through all of them because you'll have this yourself, but working on syllables, like putting something, dots or something on the floor, and then having them hop on a dot that they sound as they say each syllable, right? Like, you know, violin, you know, or each sound, dog. So getting that whole body into it, right? We know that little kids need to move. so trying that. Silly putty is another fun one because it stretches. So stretching it with each sound. So I wish I had some, for example, but like dog would be d-o-g, and then a longer word like I have no words right now. Apple would be a. Oh, that's 3. That's still just 3 sounds. Well, okay, violin again. Violin, right? So you're just doing each kind of syllable there. Is another way to go. So anyway, you'll have this, but there's just kind of an endless number of rhyming games and songs and things like that you can do with your kiddos. Okay, let me share again. Okay. So, okay, I have just a little 2-minute rhyming video here to share with you all. Oh, my screen sharing is paused, so let me try that again. Sorry.
What rhymes with blizzard though? Blizzard, right? So we could do lizard, blizzard.
One step in our sequence of phonemic awareness is rhyming.
Travis, do you have one that rhymes with alligator? Real words, right?
Alligator, schmalligator.
Alligator, schmalligator.
You can incorporate rhyming because rhyming fits into so many different things, from your songs to your nursery rhymes to music. There's pretty much rhyming constantly in our world.
What rhymes with Vivian? Whose name?
Vivian.
Rhyming definitely helps kids have a better awareness of the sounds that are in a word.
I'm a little lizard, my oh my. My skin has scales, it's nice and dry.
To teach rhymes, I use a variety because kids learn in different ways. A lot of the children relate to music.
You may think I'm slimy, what? Not me. I'm a reptile, yes sirree.
If you know you're going to read a book that has a lot of rhymes in it, you might ask the children, listen closely, and if you hear a rhyming word, raise your hand. Tell me what that rhyming word is. Fill in the blanks. Shake, shake, shudder near the sludgy old swamp. The dinosaurs are coming. Get ready to rock.
Once they understand how to rhyme, kids will love to do it.
We're going to play a game called Rhyming Reptiles. Our rhymes might be really crazy rhymes because they might not make any sense.
To do rhyming, you don't have to have words that make sense. They just need to sound the same. So you could rhyme Peggy and Leggy.
Turtle, hurdle.
Turtle, hurdle.
Turtle, hurdle.
It doesn't have to make any sense. They just need to rhyme, so they're hearing the sound.
Snake, hake.
Snake, hake. I'll go home and I rhyme all the time. Ha, see that?
Okay, so just a cute little rhyming video. I also wanted to show you this because I think this is such a fun idea. These are rhyming baskets. So it's just a bunch of little items that each thing has or this pairs, I guess, that have a rhyming match. So for instance, in here is a goat and a boat, a man and a fan, a chair and a bear, a snake and a cake, a cat and a hat, a duck and a truck, a fox and a box, a mouse and a house, a car and a star, a dog and a frog. So I think that's a fun way to let kids play and practice this important skill. Okay, so I'm going to share another cute short little video. It's about 3.5 minutes long. And this one I love because you can see the teacher doing one activity with her kiddos. And in that one activity, she touches on all of these skill areas. You'll see print awareness. You'll see the alphabetic principle. You'll see her practicing the phonemic awareness, writing development, oral language skills, all of these in one activity. So this is on a website. Let's see.
$4 to look.
The overall goal for our students would be to have them see themselves as readers and writers, as opposed to just teaching them from worksheets and writing letters with no meaning behind it.
So, Breon, your favorite thing that you chose was swimming trunks. Where do you like to go when you put the swimming trunks on? At the beach. So you like to go to the beach when you wear your swimming trunks? So what story do you want to tell me about your swimming trunks? The dinosaur's at the beach with me. Okay, and what did you and the dinosaur do at the beach?
I just flipped in the water and then I splashed.
I flipped in the water and then I splashed.
When children are able to draw their pictures and then see the words that are placed with those pictures, then it helps them to understand that there's a purpose for the words on the page.
He was stomping on the sand.
He was stomping on the sand.
Because he broke his castle.
Oh, was he sad?
He was mad.
Oh, he was mad. Can you show me how mad looks? Oh, that's a mad face.
The other area that we had was the special interest area. Each child is able to come and do a profile of themselves, and after they finished, they were able to do a story.
What color is your shirt? Blue. Blue. And you chose pants. Those pants have something special on them.
It's dinosaurs.
They're dinosaurs. Wow, everybody is talking about dinosaurs. Can you tell me a story about Jaden?
He's going to the zoo.
He's going to the zoo.
As they are giving us the dictation, then we take the opportunity to review phonological awareness, and that might be identifying letters and the sounds that those letters make.
Zoo starts with the letter Z. Zoo, okay. And what's Jaden going to see at the zoo?
Dinosaurs.
He's going to see dinosaurs at the zoo? Okay. This story says Jaden is going to the zoo.
If they're drawing pictures and telling a story about it, then it helps them to move from facts of what they already know into being a bit more creative. It helps them to be more aware of things around them.
And what are these coming down from his eyes?
Crying drips.
Okay, what's another word for crying drips? When the water comes from our eyes, what's another word for crying drips? Starts with the T, huh?
Tears.
Tears, you got it.
We want them to make the connection when they're looking at a real book, that they're able to write, that they're able to become authors, and that all makes for feeling better about yourself.
Okay, so here we go again. Sorry, back and forth and back and forth. Okay, so again, they go over all the different component areas, right? They the print awareness, right? They're writing things and they're putting it on the wall, and they're making the connection. And she said, "I'm going to read this to you," and she read kind of one word at a time. The alphabetical alphabetic principles, like zoo starts with a Z, see the Z here, that kind of thing. The phonemic awareness, where they're talking about the letter sounds. Writing development, right? She's dictating for him. They drew the pictures. And then the oral language skills. I thought that was so cute when he said the crying drips. And she was like, okay, what are those called? So working on vocabulary and of course, great language development, talking about, having them express their ideas out loud in that way. Of course, that's kind of the pre-writing skill also of she's dictating what what he's processing. So anyway, I like that because it's really activity. It's an activity that probably many of you have done, right? Or most of you that work with, maybe if you work with 3s, 4s, 5s, and it's such an easy way to touch on all those skills. So another important way to help kids develop these important pre-literacy skills, what actually many experts say is the most important teaching strategy is, I can't get my slide to advance. Okay, there we go. Read aloud. Reading aloud to kids of all ages in an engaging way. So making it interesting, giving them lots of experience. It promotes their development across multiple domains. And if we're doing it in an interesting way that engages them and makes them excited. So it stimulates their imaginations, it increases their vocabularies, helps them make that print awareness, the connection that words and what's written on the page are and what you speak are the same thing. Introduces them to like the components of stories. So not only the physical book, we talked about that, right? Like how we hold a book and what order it goes in, but also the components of stories like beginning, middle, and end. And they've got to have that experience in order to understand that. And then of course it teaches them about the surrounding world. So really there's not much that's better than reading out loud to kids. I mentioned earlier that that reading is so important because it expands vocabulary more so than talking. So the research shows that grown-ups use a core group, most grown-ups, average grown-up, uses a core group of words from about 1 to 5,000 different words that they use on a daily basis. Kids need to be exposed to closer to 10,000 words by age 5 to have the most success in reading as they get older. And books have twice as many words as language spoken on, you know, primetime TV or in conversations between college graduates, right? Because we we may know all these words, but we narrow what we actually say. But books will, I mean, you know, how often am I going to talk about, you know, violin and trombones in a conversation? So it, like that book example. So it exposes kids to so many more words than if we just talk to them. And talking, of course, is very important, but you know, both is important. Okay, so just kind of some tips to read aloud. So probably you guys are doing this, I bet. So setting aside a special time each day to read to kids. So you know, frequent reading and having those positive associations is really important. So they'll come to look forward to it, right? And especially if we make reading time fun. So we're showing enthusiasm, we're, you know, maybe you're doing voices, maybe you're acting silly, that kind of thing. Help children learn as you read. So, you know, how to do that would be like asking questions about the book, pointing out words or letters or numbers or, you know, colors or whatever. You can also ask questions like, what is the child doing in this book? You know, what does her face look like? Provide feedback, and then, you know, encourage them to kind of think a little bit more deeply. And if they're active participants rather than just passive listeners, they're going to experience more growth in their comprehension and their vocabulary. Have kids help you select books. So, you know, if you can go to the library with them, then great. If you can't, then, you know, have a variety of books and have them help you select what you read, right? So sometimes we'll have something directed toward the whole group that we choose, but other times, you know, when we're just free time or whatever, let them choose what book. Or what do we want to learn about? Oh, we want to learn about dinosaurs, and then you go get some books about dinosaurs. Okay, read and reread a variety of books. So, you know, informational books like, oh gosh, I've read my son about 1 billion of those diggers and trucks and construction books when he was young. He loved those. Or storybooks or alphabet books, you know, books that teach alphabet and numbers and things like that, nursery rhymes, you know, just a variety. Expose them to as much as possible. And note, I said reread also, because they want to hear those favorites again and again. And I know that it can get frustrating if you're tired of a book and you don't want to read it again and again. But it's such an important developmental thing for them to do, to hear those words again and again. And the, you know, again, the more experience they have with, you know, the more times they hear a word, the more they're going to master it later. The more they hear the same story and understand this is the sequence of events, the better they're going to make those connections. So it's developmentally appropriate, but, you know, and don't forget storytelling. So, you know, making up stories, telling each other, using, you know, maybe it's circle time, telling a story with props. So, you know, that's all important skills. Those, also those, sometimes we'll have, I've seen those or heard those and used them. The audio recordings that are kind of stories, those are really fun too. The ones that are designed for preschoolers, I like those. And so specifically for 0 to 3-year-olds, so little ones, you know, you're encouraging simple conversations, right? You know, what color is that? Do you see that? What's hiding under the bed? You know, that kind of thing. And you're pausing every few pages to ask questions. And if they don't know, then you're giving them the answer, right? What kind of animal is that? And they look at you and you say, oh, it's a raccoon, you know. And then, of course, as they get more developed, you're asking more open-ended questions. So, yeah. And then as they get a little bit older, you can talk about the story the goal would be to talk about it before and after the reading, and then read the story through without stopping to ask questions, because you want them to, one, experience the story all the way through, and it's a little bit easier to understand it, right, if it's read all the way through rather than if there are a bunch of interruptions. Also, you want to develop that attention span, right, to listening to a story, and that sort of thing. So you talk about it, then you read the story, and then afterwards you talk about it again, ask questions, and you could go through, once you read it once, you might go through it again and be like, oh, look at her face, she looks really sad, why do you think she looks like, whatever, or why do you think she ran, down the street like that, whatever it is. And of course, be expressive, right? Nobody wants to listen to a boring storyteller. And so for us, that part of that is making sure that we can provide a positive experience reading out loud. So, asking yourself, how do I feel about reading out loud? Am I self-conscious? Is that obvious to the kids? Do I look like I enjoy books? Do I, is there something that's keeping me from, or making me feel more self-conscious, or keeping me from enjoying this, or, so that sort of thing. Am I making sure they have easy access to books? Am I making myself available to read to them? And then of course, the kinds of books you choose. Am I choosing books that have boy and girl main characters from a variety of races and cultures? Am I exposing them to the big wide worlds? Because that's one of the great benefits of books, is being able to expose them to so much. Do I have books that build empathy, that show kids that maybe have disabilities or different sorts of experiences, so that they can grow? So making sure you're not limiting your book choices, and read those books with a higher level vocabulary than your kids have, right? That's how they learn new words. And sometimes you'll see, if you've got your kids seem a little bit bored, it might mean that you need to get a little bit more sophisticated books. They might be a little bit bored with what they currently have. Reading levels again are so different. Listening levels are just like anything else developmental. They're totally different for different kids. All right, so I have another video here, and it's BJ Novak. He's from The Office. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he was the temp on The Office, and he's written a book called A Book with No Pictures. And I love this video because it's him reading his book to a school group, and he is so expressive and so engaging, and the kids just get such a kick out of it. And the other thing I love about this book, and by the way, I love reading this book to kids in my care, but it teaches how books work. Like you'll see, it's really cute.
What's that? You're getting cell phone picture here. This is a book with no pictures. It might seem like no fun to have someone read you a book with no pictures. It probably seems boring and serious, except here is how books work. Everything the words say, the person reading the book has to say, no matter what. That's the deal. That's the rule. So that means even if the words say, Blork. Wait, what? That doesn't even mean anything. Blurf. I am a monkey who taught myself to read. Hey, what? I'm not a monkey. And now I am reading you this book with my monkey mouth in my monkey voice. That's not true. Also, I am a robot monkey. What? And my head is made of blueberry pizza. What? Is this book over yet? Can I stop reading? No? There are more pages? I have to read the rest? My only friend in the whole wide world is a hippo named Boo Boo Butt. Kids know that this is the book that makes the grown-ups have to say silly things like, Go wacko magrumfa do I brook, oop, eep, beep, boop, barumpa jumpa, badungi face. Oh my goodness. This is just too ridiculous.
Okay, so just the kids are just so into it. I just love it because he does such a good job reading it. And like I said, explains how books work, right? He says, you know, they're written here, so I have to say this, so I have to keep going, right? So so it's just it's a special book. I really like that one. Okay, so moving on. So those were kind of you know, our skills and how we're gonna best to teach kids these important skills, right? Like reading aloud. And then now we're gonna talk a little bit about how to enrich their experience. And one way to do that is through literacy links. And what they do is they take the story just a little bit deeper. Now, I bet, you know, there's a million ways to do this, and I bet you guys are already doing some of these things. But here's some new ideas, hopefully. So it's about building lesson plans around books. Instead of, often we use themes and then we find books to fit in, but this is like the opposite of that. It's choosing a book and then, you know, extending it over in other areas of learning. So for instance, in a play area, so you can see in that Goldilocks, there's the Goldilocks book, and then they have just all the little, you know, the little 3 little bears, and then they've got Goldilocks in her chair and little oatmeal, and so it's taking that book and putting it in the dramatic play center. And then this other one is this is actually my son, and we did this when he was, you know, 4 or 5, and we read the book Katie and the Big Snow, and then this is his city map. You can see the pretty roads and the houses. So we just used big paper, taped it together, and made a really big sheet, and he made a city map. So that was a really fun way to practice all kinds of skills, right? Drawing skills, and kind of extend that story. So I don't know if he still remembers this. He's 16 now. I don't have to ask him. Okay, and then I don't know if you've seen those. There's Rosie Revere Engineer, and there's, oh, I can't remember what the other ones are called, but it's like a whole series of books. And so we read the book, and then we did like a, you know, supplied them with a bunch of crafts or a bunch of craft supplies, and then they built their own, they engineered their own project, because it's all about how Rosie makes all kinds of crazy stuff. And then this is another class I had. These were I think they're 5-year-olds, 4 or 5-year-olds, and we read Where the Wild Things Are, and then they made their wild thing masks out of paper bags, and so that was really fun. And then of course they raised a rumpus and ran all around and all that. So those are just kind of fun ways to extend it. Now we're going to watch, I believe this is our last video, and it's another Teaching Channel video, and it shows an interactive read aloud. So kind of a different version of extending stories. Not this one, I just did this one. Okay, it's about 4.5 minutes.
Bippity boppity bumblebee. Can you say your name for me? Guy look. Let's clap it. Guy look. Let's snap it. Guy look. Let's stomp it. Guy look.
I teach at First Place to Start Child Care Center, and we have ages 4 and 5-year-olds. And our read aloud today, we read the story Joseph Had a Little Overcoat. We chose that book because it added to our clothing theme, but it also expanded their vocabulary on different kinds of clothing.
Who is this? Remember, who is that? Remember his name? Starts with the J. Joe.
Joseph.
All right. And he has a bunch of friends on there. Who are his friends?
All the animals.
All the animals are on there.
That's a chicken.
A chicken. What's that one? A cow. And look, all of his friends here. What are they doing?
He's singing.
Singing, exactly. He's singing. So Joseph had a little overcoat. It was old and worn. And what was worn? What did we say? Talk about worn. Worn is
It's getting old.
It's getting old.
So we chose that book because they were able to repeat parts of the story over and over again, and they were able to use that repetition to expand their vocabulary.
Joseph had a little necktie. It got old and worn.
I was trying to say that.
And then Joseph had a little button. One day, he lost it. Yes, go on.
And then he made a story of it.
You remember so well. And what is he doing? He's looking for it. And, wow, is he looking very, very hard for that? Because he's done what?
And he's moving the stuff away. And there's a hole on his wand.
A hole?
It's right there on this wand.
Come show me.
That's right.
When we're reading stories to them, they're able to be a bit more creative. So it's something that comes from reading aloud because he comprehended, he understood the story, but he was able to take it a step further.
Okay, I like that story too. And you know what? I brought some coats, and so we can see what the vest looked like and what the overcoat looks like. Who wants to try on the overcoat that Joseph had?
Me.
Okay, how about Grecia?
We gave them a chance to act out the story, so each child was able to put on one of those types of clothing, so they were able to gain a lot more comprehension.
I need, Jaden, you come and hold the book, and we'll go back to the pages and see. Thank you, Jaden.
We did have one little boy that we had to sit and turn the pages, which is also very important to children in reading aloud.
And you can hold it better. After he had the jacket, then it became a what? A vest. So after it was a jacket, it became a vest. What's missing off of the vest that was on the jacket? What are these things here? Sleeves. So who knows what it's going to become next?
Me.
What? What is it going to be? A scarf. Let's turn the page and let's see. There it is. What is it? A scarf.
Allowing the children to become a part of the story helps them to understand, and that's what reading aloud is all about.
Jacket, and then it becomes a vest, and then a scarf, and then a tie, and then a handkerchief, and then a button. Yay!
Okay. All right, let me close this up. Computer. Okay. What a cute classroom. Let me get my presentation back, and that's our last video. Hold on, sorry. Let me try this again. Oh no, my presentation closed. crashed. Hold on 1 second. Very sorry. Okay, it's reopening. It's just like a regular class where there's going to be technical problems, right? Okay. I'm sorry, one last time. I'm afraid it's going to be not right. Okay, so I'm nearly at the end here, but I did want to talk about milestones. So let me do that. There's one thing I know is that I can't multitask. Okay, here we go. Let's start the slideshow. It's looking my way. Okay, we're gonna have to zoom to the end. So sorry about that. Okay, here we are. So talking about milestones, and we're just going to kind of run through these. I do have a handout for this too that I'll go ahead and send out. It goes through kind of birth to 3 years old milestones, and then 3 and 4, and then there are 5-year-old milestones that I did not include in this presentation, but they're on the sheet. There are a lot of them. And again, we want to say that these are kind of based on typical development, but particular kids are all different and their experiences are different, and there's a wide range of normal, and that's totally fine. But this is what we're working toward. Okay, so birth to 3 years. Over the course of this time period, they learn to recognize specific books by their cover, right? You'll see that where they bring you the same book because they love it. They enter into a book sharing routine. So they, with their primary caregiver. So what that means is they bring you a book and they know to get on your lap and they know how to sit and listen to a story, or they go and sit on their mat and they're ready to listen, you know, so they develop kind of habits around books, and they know how to handle that. They listen to books. Now that doesn't mean that they're going to listen forever, right? That they're going to sit for a long time, but they develop kind of an attention span to listen. They demonstrate enjoyment of rhyming language and nonsense words, right? They enjoy silly wordplay. I think that's fun, right? That's part of that falling in love with language thing that's so important. They label objects in books, so you'll see them pointing. You know, you see that with young toddlers, right? Ones where they're pointing at the dog on the page, or you know, whatever it might be. Birth to 3, more of them. They I have that twice. Recognize specific books by their cover. They pretend to read books, so I love that. And they'll read to you, right? They'll try to do that. They understand that books are handled in particular ways, so that's part of that. Like we talked about before, teaching them that, you know, like words go left to right, and we turn the pages this way, and we hold the book right side up, and like this little guy. So that's one of those milestone skills that we learn. You'll start to see. You probably notice if you have kids in that kind of you know, under 3 age group. Some of them will understand how to read a book from the beginning to the end, or look at pages, and then the other one will, you know, do it like this guy upside down, or they'll start at the end and go backwards. They'll ask adults to read and write, so they understand that it's just a skill that, you know, mom, read this to me, or teacher, you write this down for me, that kind of thing. And then of course they'll want to do those things on their own. Begin to show attention in specific print, such as that should say letters in their name. So they might see in that video we said that you know, I see an O for Olivia, right? So they might learn the first letter of their name, and they might recognize it everywhere. They might think that every time they see that letter that it says their name, right? So that's kind of a developmental skill milestone. Okay, uses increasingly purposeful scribbling. So the scribbling of a 15-month-old and the scribbling of a, you know, nearly 3-year-old are very different. The 3-year-old has a lot more control. They're maybe making more, you know, things that look a lot more letter-like, or picture-like. You know, they can distinguish the difference between drawing and writing, right? Even if they can't quite do it yet, they understand that there's difference. Yeah, and so like you might see, they might draw a picture and then do some scribbles at the bottom that are the words, right? So you can see that sort of thing. Then, so that's the 0 to 3. And so how we kind of work on those skills are just like, right? We're reading to them, we've got alphabet toys and puzzles and print rich environment, and we're singing songs and playing, and reading rhyming books and all that kind of thing. That we're practicing writing and improving our fine motor skills with activities. So, all the things that you're doing. And then of course that language development, really that was the most important thing from 0 to 2. And then they are only building from there. So, so those are kind of the things to work on in those early years. Then for the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, that's where their skills are a little bit, are a little higher level, right? So they're starting to understand more about the alphabet. So they know that alphabet letters are like separate than other squiggles, right? You know what I mean? Like they like it says here, they're a special category of visual graphics, and that they each have a different name, right? So like that daddy has a D, and they might not, threes are not going to know all those letters probably, and 4s. They may not be able to identify all the letters, but they understand that they're all different, and they understand they all have a name. Like a D is always a D, kind of thing. Recognizing print in the local environment. So it's not on the chart, but you'll see the recognizing symbols, like they mentioned the McDonald's symbol, whatever it is special in their lives, they learn those symbols, and that's just that's a reading skill, right? It's recognizing that symbol signifies something else. And so younger kids will do that. Older, 3s and 4s definitely will still do it, but they might start to recognize other things. Like I said, they might see, if their name is Connor, they might see a C, and whenever they see it, they think it says Connor everywhere. That kind of thing. They might pretend to read a sign, that sort of thing. Okay, understands that different text forms are used for different functions of print. So yeah, like labeling is different than books, is different than, that sort of thing. They might know some alphabet letters, especially the ones from their own name, and they use writing or scribbling as part of their play. So like we had those pictures of the little kids playing office, and they were writing things down, or maybe the doctor's office, so they were writing something down. Maybe we're making a grocery list, or taking an order at a restaurant. So that's incorporated. So it's such a part of their like awareness that it becomes part of their play in that way. And then I just like this picture because what a cute little thing, this mail carrier. And so, maybe he's matching up, the M from mommy and with the right letter. So it's just such a good way to play and practice identifying some letters, or that sort of thing. All right. They also understand and follow oral directions. I should say when they want to, but they do. They can hear you. They can comprehend what you're asking them to do. They can do it. I mean, younger toddlers can do that too, right? So this is just a little higher level. Uses new vocabulary and grammatical constructions in their own speech. So they're learning new words and incorporating them into what they say. They might start, they might have said, that's me coat. And then they might start to learn that's my coat, right? They start to correct themselves. As they develop, they start to recognize separable and repeating sounds and languages and language. So that's part of that phonemic awareness. They're starting to make those connections. And then they start to recognize beginning and rhyming sounds in familiar words. So knowing that cat starts with k, right? Or, cat and bat and sat, that sort of thing. So they're just starting to make those connections. And then our last one is they display reading and writing attempts. So you'll see them drawing a picture and writing a story, that sort of thing. They might start at 4, like older kids, like 4s and 5s might be doing creative spelling, that sort of thing. They show an interest in books and in reading. They might want to read to you. They're interested in looking at books. They want to be read to. They're understanding the meaning of a story being told, and you can tell that because they ask the right questions. They ask questions that make sense, and they make comments that make sense. And then when being read a story, they connect the information and events to real life experiences, and so that's another really good way to tell if comprehension is there, right? If they say, one time I was really scared, or I have a dog, or that sort of thing. So they're listening to the story, understanding it, processing it, thinking about how it's like their life, or how, what they know about that, and then they're sharing that. So that's really that higher level thinking that we talked about is something that kids have to be able to do. It's one of the stages to get ready to read and write. And so we start to see that kind of higher level, more complex thinking as they develop. So that is the end of my presentation. Turn my camera on for a minute. Oh, I'm back. So that's all I have for all of you. I'm going to send out a quiz, about 5 or so questions that will be part of the class survey, so that I can use that to kind of verify attendance. But otherwise, I'm really appreciative for you guys to hang in here with me. I know it's more fun to have an interactive class where you can share and learn from each other. So I look forward to seeing you all again soon. And thanks so much for being here. Bye.